Yo, yo, what's going on, everybody? Hope you are having a good week so far. Just a quick one before we get on to the podcast. If you are on Spotify, I would love it if you would go and follow my record box, which is my Spotify playlist. It's called Will Clarke's Record Box. I update it every week with about 50 new records. Anyway, podcast time, and my good homie Dubesque, who is DJ producer from Vienna. I got talking to Dubesque probably about a year and a half ago. We kind of both released records on Kneaded Pains, which is how we kind of got talking to each other. I absolutely love his records, and I love him as a human being. He's such a nice guy. This was a really good podcast. It was, it was just very honest and very real. So without further ado, Dubesque. And we're live. Dude, okay, this is really bad. How is it Dubesque?
Actually, I don't know. Like the music style, it's dub, right?
Okay.
So, and I was thinking about a moniker for this project for ages, and I came up with Dubesque because it's kind of a mixture of the style dub, because bass heavy, like. And esque comes from arabesque, which basically means that that a piece of music is, you can interpret it in any form whatsoever, like free in interpretation.
Okay.
So that's how it came together. So, I mean, actually, I don't care if people say Dubesque or Dubesque, whatever feels more natural to you.
I like that, man. I love the fact that you don't actually know what your name really means as well, or how it's actually pronounced, but I like that.
In Austria, people say Dubesque. In the UK and in the US, people say Dubesque. And you can call me Philip, I don't care.
What's up, Philip? Oh, dude, how's life, man? So I actually saw you. You flew to the UK you're from Vienna.
Yes.
And I actually saw you with Alex from Densapika the other day, and your lovely wife. How's life?
It's everything's, it's like in the middle of this pandemic that's actually now going on for 8 months or something.
Yeah.
It's always hard to, I've been saying this in interviews, it's always hard to say that you're fine with it, because it comes from a very privileged,
of course,
living, and I'm very aware of that. And I'm very, very happy to say that we didn't struggle that bad when it comes to like mental stuff or financial issues and stuff. So, so basically I found myself in a very lucky position to enjoy the slowing down of life, and, to be able to take a step back and maybe like reorder priorities and think about what's really important. So that being said, it wasn't the worst summer, but still, obviously, missing parties a lot, missing hanging out with friends without having to keep curfews in mind.
Yeah.
And I think, like my wife and I, we have a 6.5-year-old daughter, and it was probably the hardest for her because she wasn't allowed to hang out with her friends as she's used to. And, so there were ups and downs, but generally speaking, everything's all right. And very much looking forward for this year to end and to get back to normal as far as possible. Soon.
Yeah, it must be weird being a child during this time, because all you want to do when you're a kid is just hang out with your mates. Like as adults, you kind of learn to have time by yourself and learn to like just be alone, if you know what I mean, and accept to be alone. And I think when you're a kid, all you want to do is just play with your mates, and and none of them can.
Yeah, but it's not about the kids. It's more about the parents, because we have friends who are taking the COVID situation as seriously as we do, but without panicking or without without expecting to die as soon as you shake somebody's hands or something.
Yeah.
It's always important to put things in perspective somehow.
Totally.
So there have been friends of ours who had no problem with our kids hanging out together.
Yeah.
Our wife just coming in. Hi.
What's up, Gabby?
But there's also been people who didn't even want to be in the same street at the same time. You got to put things in perspective, and I think that if you let common sense take over from time to time, you will figure out it's not that bad actually.
Yeah, no, I agree. I guess also I haven't thought about this, but with the kids thing, like kids have to be kids, right? They still have to like, and I think a lot of kids have. I was talking to one of my friends the other day. He's American, and he's got like a 15-year-old boy, and it was like he's like, all my son has been around is adults having conversations. Like, no, there's like they've not been able to be kids and enjoy kid life, if you know what I mean, because
that's one of the good things about what I love about living in Vienna. Vienna is the only really major city in Austria. So whatever happens in Austria basically happens in Vienna first.
Yeah.
I don't want to offend anybody from the countryside, but that's basically so it's a huge city, but it's still small enough to get into the car, and within 15 minutes you're outside of Vienna, in the middle of the forest, in the middle of the countryside actually. So while the first lockdown took place, after a couple of days or every couple of days, we figured, okay, we need to take the little one out to the fresh air. We got to let her get rid of the energy, and you know, there's nothing better for a kid than just putting some dirty clothes on and just spend the whole afternoon somewhere in the woods, somewhere in the forest, and you know, it's kind of an adventure thing, especially if you're a kid growing up in the city. So you know, you have to, like you said, they have to let kids be kids and give them the opportunity to go a little crazy every once in a while. Otherwise, the energy level is unreal in the evening, and you won't even get them to bed on a proper time. So
totally, man. I don't know about you, but I grew up in the countryside pretty much, and the closest city to me is Bristol, but I never was kind of brought up in the city. And some of my fondest memories is like going away camping with my family, or literally like every weekend just going in the woods and just chilling out and kind of making campfires and things like that. And I think it's so important kind of growing up to like experience those things.
Absolutely. And that's one of the good things about Vienna. You know, if you live in New York or in, you know, even London, surrounded by concrete, and wherever you look, everything is man-made. You know, it's hard to get a view of actually just nature itself. And I also grew up in the countryside. And the good thing about Vienna is, again, Vienna is big enough to be anonymous if you feel like being by yourself. But you're going out, but without meeting people, you know. But it's in the same time, it's small enough to just go to places where you know you will eventually meet your friends without necessarily have to call them up and say, hey, do you want to meet up? So, like, you know, that combination makes it the perfect city for us to live in and also to raise our kid.
What, did you grow up in Vienna?
No, I grew up I was born in Innsbruck, which is the very western part of Austria.
Okay.
And when my parents divorced, I moved to my stepfather with my mom, who lived in the very southern part of Germany, in the middle of nowhere. It's not even in the middle of nowhere. It's in the shadow of, I don't know how to put that German saying in English, but it's in the middle of nowhere, of the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
So, But you know, as a kid growing up until they turned 12 or 13, it was the perfect place to be. But then once puberty kicks in and the interest starts to shift from building tree houses to more impressing girls or something. All of a sudden the countryside is no. You know,
there's no girls around your area, and I feel you. I feel you.
Yeah, but and if you would meet all of them within no time. So but it was wonderful, and I still enjoy being there. But in the same time, after being at my mom's house for a couple of days straight, I miss it's small things that I miss. For instance, the last time we've been at my mom's house, I said, let's go have dinner. And then at some point they were like, okay, we got to go now because the last taxi is leaving now. And it was like, man, it's 6 p.m. Like, what are you talking about? Or, you know, Sunday evenings, like, let's order Chinese food. Like, there's no Chinese restaurant within an area of 50 kilometers. You know, no, it's not, you don't need it. But if you're used to it, it's just fine to have the opportunity to.
It's funny because it's the same for when I come back to the UK. Like being in the US and kind of being in a different city every kind of day or week, if you know what I mean. You're kind of lucky that you have the city privileges. And then I come back here and it's like, okay, I've got to drive miles to get anywhere. You don't get like food isn't delivered at all. And like there's restaurants aren't open every day, if you know what I mean. It's kind of like but you've still got to drive to get to them. But I love it as well. There's something nice that you can like go to the local village, and it's that community, I think, that I think cities really lack, where you can walk down the street and know like 10, 20 people. But Vienna's pretty small, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's 1.8 million people live in Vienna.
Yeah.
So it's a big city, but it's not like London or Berlin or New York, or it's not on that scale. But but I think it also depends on, like, if you take a look at the whole lifespan. Once you were born and you live in the countryside, you don't really know what's out there.
Yeah.
And then once you're in high school, you may take excursions to other cities. Like, we've been in Berlin, we've been in Paris, and all of a sudden you get a glimpse of, oh man, there's much more going on. Then puberty kicks in and you just want to leave it.
Yeah.
And then I just turned 37, and I've been living in the middle of downtown Vienna ever since I moved to Vienna. But now I'm slowly thinking about moving, maybe, a little outside of the city, like it's
so funny, isn't it? Like, everyone, as soon as everyone gets a bit older, they're like, I need to get out.
I still enjoy the noise of a city and being able to go places like, I don't know, nice hotels, Soho House, club nights, whatever, but not on a daily basis anymore.
No, I think there's something amazing by stepping out of your door and just having like fresh air and no neighbors and not have to worry about anything. You can just walk in the fields, and there's something beautiful about that. But then there's also the complete opposite to that. I love waking up in New York City and just walking down Midtown and just enjoying it and just watching people and kind of just being part of the hustle and bustle of like a city. There's something about that just is.
Yeah, especially if you're creative in any sense. I mean, I started DJing when I was 14, and there wasn't a record shop
in
the countryside. So even to get to the next record shop in a place called Ulm, which was like 60 kilometers away, I had to spend money on the train and the bus to actually go there. And so there was no inspiration, nothing. There wasn't the internet. There was no YouTube. There was no podcast. There was nothing.
Yeah.
So it's really, it got frustrating at a point. So especially as a creative, now living in the city and going back to the countryside can be as inspiring as it was to go into a city back then when I used to live in the countryside. But
I think it's that it's not probably the best analogy to say, but it's like the grass is always greener but in a positive way, not in a way that is negative. Jesus Christ, I don't know if you can hear that, but it's raining outside and it is fucking hammering down. How did you start? So like growing up in the sticks, like how did you start getting into DJing music? Was it like a upbringing or what?
It was pure. It was like actually it was my grandmom.
Okay.
Out of it. So I started playing piano when I was 6. Like my mom told me that I came up to her one day and said, I want to learn how to play the piano. I was 6. I don't really remember like the intention, but I was 6 back then. And I was pretty good in it. So when I turned 10, between 10 and 13, I actually played piano concerts.
Yeah.
On a small, not like lang, but on a small scale on the countryside. And I always enjoyed to be on stage and play music and entertain people with music. But it was, at some point, I felt it kind of boring because the average age of my audience was some 50-something. And, they were listening for an hour and then it was like, And then when I was 13 and a half, actually my grandmom took me on a crusade ship through the Mediterranean Sea. And on this big ass ship, you couldn't get lost. So that was the first time I had kind of, my grandmother, she allowed me to just, meet like people in my age and just hang out. And there was of course a club, like a disco, like super commercial music. But it was the first time I actually saw a real DJ do it. I figured, okay, man, wait a minute. He's doing the same thing that I do. He's entertaining people with music, but it looks so much more fun what he does because he always had friends and girls and the music was loud and drinks and the records and scratching and it was just like, and he also got that immediate response from what he was doing from the audience. So he just did a little scratching and cut the new hit record in and everybody was going nuts. So that was kind of an eye-opening experience. I didn't like the music though, but the technique and the idea.
Yeah.
I like very much. So I came back home from the trip and told my mom, I want to be a DJ. And I was very lucky that my mom was always very supportive of any crazy plans I had. So a couple of months later, when I turned 14, as a birthday present, she gave me 2 turntables in the mixer, and that was the start of my bedroom career. But like I said before, there was no YouTube tutorials. Nobody on the countryside was a DJ. Nobody would show me how to beat match or how to scratch. So it was kind of a self-taught situation. And there was also the time when I started to, in every school vacation that I had, I was looking for work, and I had the nastiest jobs, but it was paid, and I could go to this particular record shop. It was called Record Express in Ulm back then. And that was the beginning. And it was just, it was amazing. I would always, when I found 2 or 3 records that really fit together perfectly, and I was able to beat match them, I was always saying, "Mom, come up, I gotta show you something." And she didn't understand what I was doing. So I told her, okay, I play this record now, and you tell me if you think when I start to blend in the next record. And at some point she couldn't tell me. At some point it was just the next record already, and she didn't take the transition. She didn't notice the transition. I was like, yes.
Smashed it.
That was how it all started, basically.
That's amazing. So from the DJing side of things, so you would DJ first, and then you wanted to become a producer from that, or where was the transition to that?
The real transition to producing was when I was already living in Vienna. I moved to Vienna after my A-level exam, after I graduated from high school to go to university in 2002. And I came from the countryside. I did my own parties there. I was DJing.
What did you do? Sorry to jump in. What did you do at university?
Musicology.
Okay, cool. So,
and I tried to get the foot in the door somewhere in Vienna, and the first job that I got was in a record store in Vienna, and that's how I got to know the scene. And I eventually got the kind of a resident spot at the club in Vienna called Flex every Monday night, and the place was called Dub Club, and they played all kinds of dub, roots, reggae, grime, UK garage, new school breaks, drum and bass, jungle, actually everything other than house, and that kind of shaped my taste. And try to get an idea. And I had my first mentors here and then at some point I just found it boring to just play other people's music, because there were many times where I heard a record and I liked the first half of it. And then after the main break, it turned into something that I didn't think I could play out ever. So I bought the record still and recorded it into the first Cubase VST32 I had back then, and tried to rearrange it so that it made sense for me. So it was kind of editing. That's how it basically started. And then at some point you would eventually add acapellas, or make a mix, a mashup of 2 records, or that's how it basically started. And from there it was then a very small step to actually write your own first record, which sounded horrible. I still have it. I will never play it to you ever.
I have to hear that. I wish I still had my first record, because I remember making it at college. And it was awful.
Because especially it's so frustrating. It's this constant valley of self-doubt. You have an idea in mind. It sounds amazing in your head. And you have the tools in Logic or in Cubase or in Ableton. You have the compressors. You have the EQs. You have everything. You just don't know how to use them to make it sound where you have it in your mind. And then that was probably around 2006-07. And there was no Future Music magazine. There was no In the Studio With videos. There was no tutorials. There was no people. I mean, nowadays, if you don't know what parallel compression is, you just open up YouTube, you type in parallel compression, and there's like a bunch of videos that explain to you what parallel compression is. And there wasn't the case back then. And it was hard for me to find an established producer and say, hey, my name is Philip. I don't know shit about making music, but I want to be a producer. Can you please show me around? And because they had better things to do, and I get that. But it was a long path, but it was also a fun one.
When did you get to the point where you were like, I can actually make something good? Because for me, I'm just trying to think about this in my head, and I can't think when the transition went from making shit music to making okay music.
The thing is, I'm still in that transition.
I agree with you on me as well.
There's so many tunes out there where I think, okay, I could have done that easily. And then there's so many other tunes where I think, how the fuck did they do that? So I don't consider myself being like a super great producer and everything I do is just spot on. It's the exact opposite is the case. But what's more important than that is to understand that comparison doesn't make any sense ever.
Yeah.
And that there will always be somebody who's better in terms of audio engineering, mixing, mastering, chord progression, songwriting, whatsoever. I think it's more important to know that you're never going to be the best in that sense. But that's, on the other hand, not the reason why you do music. I mean, there's no comparison in creative, artistic output. You know what I mean? If I write a song or if I produce a tune and I like it and it works on the dance floor, then I don't care if another fellow producer says he thinks it's shit. Like I think if you trust your guts and if you trust your own musical taste, you will eventually find other people who share the same kind of taste and who like your music. And I'm sure for every record that you do or that I do, we will find people who like it, even though they might not know much about the production process and the struggle that comes with it. But we'll also find people who don't appreciate it.
Yeah.
And it's not my position, it's not my job to question why does this person not like my tunes. Maybe it's a person who just doesn't like the tune. Maybe it's somebody who's jealous of what I do, and even though it's his favorite tune ever and he's listening to it going to bed every night 5 times in a row, he will never tell me, you know. So if you start trying to get to a point to impress or to be liked by everybody, you're on the wrong path.
It's very true, man. And it's a battle that I've battled with a lot of my career.
I still do.
What first question, and we're probably gonna spend a while on this one, but who do you listen to and you're like, oh my God, I just can never, this music is just too good, like I could never do it?
There's Disclosure, Macioplex.
Really? Macioplex is one for me.
Like Macioplex, if I listen to, like, I have to start with saying I'm not a big analog fan because it doesn't complement my working process. But I know how Juno sounds like, how Jupiter or Prophet. I know machines, I know how they sound like. But every time I hear a Macioplex tune, I'm like, how did he do that?
Same.
Or if you listen to one of his songs for the very first time, like the arrangement doesn't make sense, but then the second time it makes so much sense. And even if you try to like When the Lights Are Out, I think the last tune.
One of my favorite songs.
And I got goosebumps. And when the song was done, I needed to listen to it again and I tried to recreate it in the sense of arrangement and stuff. And I couldn't do it just because he has such a weird, but in a positive way, weird, complex understanding that if I would try to recreate it, it wouldn't make any sense at all. But the way he does is just so good.
Yeah.
And then there's also one of my, if you would ask me for what's the perfect tune, it's I would maybe say Disclosure and Sam Smith's Omen, because it has everything a proper tune needs. And the chord progressions, the synths, how it's stacked, the way it sounds, the depth, the mix down, it's just incredible. And sometimes I hear these songs or these artists and it inspires me to go in the studio and to do to take the song I did yesterday and to make a better version of it. And sometimes it's just frustrating and just shut down the computer and say, okay, all right, fuck it, let's have a beer. And
I get that totally, because but then again, you're also, from what you said, it's like that comparison is that famous saying, comparison is the thief of joy. And you could have the best day in the studio and you could write something that you absolutely love, and then you could go listen to a Macioplex record and then you're like, oh shit.
Only listen to Macioplex if you're in a very good place. They had a couple of drinks and you just want to go a little crazy. Never listen to it the next day, because it's just,
for me, John Hopkins is an artist that his music just, there's like with the Macioplex stuff, I get how he does it, but it just doesn't work in my brain on how to recreate something like that.
Then again, sorry to interrupt you, but then again, the reason why John Hopkins is who he is, or MJ Cole, or Macioplex, or even FX Twin is because they don't care. I mean, if Macioplex or John Hopkins or any of these guys would put out a record that he loves and is for a song that for his understanding is just a dope record, there's nobody in the world that could come up and say, I think this record is shit, and it would bother him. And this gives you so much freedom in creating if you're able to appreciate other people's opinions and to take it as kind of a criticism, but it doesn't change the way you approach your music, because there's no ego and nothing attached to it. And that's what I look up to the most. I even if I could, I would not want to sound like Monsieur Plex, because there's already Monsieur Plex out there. And if I would send the song to his label and it would sound like When the Lights Are Out, he would maybe appreciate, okay, this dude can make the same kind of music, but what's the point in copying my stuff and then sending it over? So,
what's your thoughts on that though? Because there's a lot of record labels that do just sound the same.
Yes, yeah. And that's something that I really miss. I remember when I first started buying records, at some point you could listen to a record without looking at it and you could tell it's a subliminal record. Or it's a Defected, or it's Azuli, or it's Peppermint Jam, or whatever house labels were relevant back then. But you could tell just by the sound. Nowadays, if you hear a tech house song, and I don't want to call anybody's names out now because I don't want to put in a negative twist.
No, I get it.
You hear a tech house song or even a techno song, and you don't know, everything sounds like this particular label or that particular hit record that just came out. And I mean, imagine if all these 30,000, 40,000 young producers, if they wouldn't all try to sound like somebody, but take the inspiration from their heroes and try to use it to sound just like themselves, how much of a creativity outlet we would have, how much like fantastic interpretations of styles and zeitgeist we would have.
No, I totally agree. I do 100% agree with that. I guess also the thing is that the industry wants people to, I've spoke about this so many times, and it's kind of like a broken record, but it's like to get popular, you almost have to be part of these record labels that kind of give you that have the brand, and people want quick success rather than build their own sound and kind of take the time with building their own sound. I did it as well, if you know what I mean. Like I was part of Dirty Bird for God knows how many years and released a lot of music for Dirty Bird. But I think that's why the industry gets like that, because people, I can only speak for myself, but I just wanted success quicker. And the way for me to get success quicker was by creating a sound that fit with a record label.
Right. And
a record label that actually had success and had events and had a following, if you know what I mean. Because no one gave a fuck about me. So how do I get people to give a fuck about me? And I loved Dirty. When I signed to Dirty Bird, I loved what they were putting out. I would play everything they put out. And now I'm lucky enough that I don't have to just release on Dirty Bird, and I can start my own record label. But it's given me a platform. It's given me the people to kind of allow that. We were actually talking about this in London with Alex, and kind of you were having this conversation, right? It was like what you want to do in your career and kind of how do you want to move forward. And me and Alex were like, just do your own thing, man. Like, just do your own thing. And you're like, yeah, but I don't know. But it's like, there's something so liberating about, I don't know if liberating is the right word, but it sounds intelligent, so I'll use it. But I think it's like being able to do your own thing is just so fucking amazing.
Yeah, but like jumping on this kind of bandwagon label kind of thing that you want to be involved with. I totally get that, because when I started out, I always wanted to release in Subliminal, because Eric Murillo back then musically was a hero. Subliminal was like a brand, and the music was like just everything that I loved. Yeah. I would buy a Subliminal record without even listening to it back then in the 90s and early 2000s. And the same nowadays. I mean, why do people want to be, people see, I don't know, the Martinez brothers and the whole lifestyle and everything, and they want to be related with them, and they want to hang out with them and DJ with them. So they try to sound like them in order to fit to them, and I get that. And up to a certain point, it makes sense, because you also, like, comparison is a good thing. I think if you take like quality of sound as a comparison kind of thing, at some point you have to evolve, and you have to make your own thing. And we talked specifically about Rebuke and his song Along Came Polly.
Yeah.
I mean, this record sounds like no other.
Yeah.
You know, the first time I heard it, it was like, it is within the tech house kind of box, but then it's not, because it's psychedelic, ayahuasca, like Damien Lazarus, 10 a.m. in the morning, you know, that kind of vibe, but still it has the, you know, it's just an amazing record.
Yeah.
And of course, this kind of record on a label like Hot Creations kickstarts your career like no other. But if you now try to make an Along Came Polly song, to have it released on Hot Creations and to have Jamie Jones played out for half a year, it's never going to happen.
No, yeah.
Because the reason why you do art in the first place should always be the art itself. So if you start making music because you want to sound like nobody else, that's a good way to start things musically off, and that's like gives you a great opportunity to eventually sound different. And then you just have to find the right person who picks up on it. But it's, you know, that's what I always hated about the EDM scene. Like I didn't have a problem with electronic music blowing up that big and being pop music and all of the radio and filling stadiums and the kind of stuff. But you would have that one record that's the big hit, and all of a sudden for half a year everything sounds the same. You know, so it's the same with underground music as well.
Yeah, no, I get that as well. It's that it's almost a gateway, right? So somebody makes a record and they do really well out of it, and then that record turns into a gateway of what everyone thinks everyone else should sound like.
I mean, Fisher's a good example. Fisher turned out the first I'm Losing It record, and all of a sudden you would have hundreds of sample packs and hundreds of songs with the same kick drum and the same kind of drop and the same kind of, you know, it's just... You still do. But there's already a Fisher guy out there. So why would you want to copy paste the thing? What's the intention other than making money, being famous, being on private jets, hang out with celebrities back, you know? And that's not the reason why you should make arts in the first place.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. But I think because of social media, that is the reason why a lot of people do start nowadays.
Yeah, of course.
And I think if you fish out the good and the bad ones, like, well, COVID has fished out the good one, the ones that actually want to do it, and the ones that were just doing it for whatever they see on Instagram. But I think it's so important to be yourself.
Absolutely.
As hard as it is, like we both said, we both struggle with it on a daily basis. But there's something to understand the value in your own art is something that I think when you realize that as an artist, or I did especially, like, and it's, for me, it's literally it's in the last 18 months I've realized that. Since I decided to start my own label and kind of do all of that, that was when I realized, like, no one can make a Will Clarke record how Will Clarke will make a Will Clarke record.
Right.
And it's like when I listen to your records, like, I couldn't recreate that. And that's why I love playing your records, because no one else is making records like you.
Thank you.
And I think that's why, I don't know, I think that's why we started talking so much, is because, like, I can only speak for myself, but I have this, like, mutual respect for people that are just willing to do their own thing.
Yeah, but it takes, like, at least for me, it took a long time to get to that point. And like my daughter's birth actually marked the day where I recognized, okay, I just want to be me. And if somebody doesn't like that, musically or personally or for whatever reason, that's okay. I don't like everybody. I don't like everybody's music as well. So, you know, who am I to expect everybody to like me? I'm fine. If you would ask everybody who knew me, who met me, a part of them would say Philip is a cool guy, and the other one would say, what a jerk. And the same goes for the music. Like, I'm sure there are a lot of people who like the tunes I put out, and there's a lot of people who think it's rubbish, and that's okay too. Doesn't mean that I cannot go have a beer with you. You know, I don't take it personal, but it's to go to the studio and have a certain amount of freedom to create and not think about, oh, I like that, but oh, wait a minute, if I put that in the record, what will this person think? So you have to get rid of and let go of these kind of feelings, and you have to let go of trying to fit into a box. Because I remember, just like a side story, I remember like one of my favorite records of all times is Moby Go, but particular because he sampled the chord progression from Twin Peaks, which is stuck in my head ever since I saw the first intro of Twin Peaks. But a couple of years ago, like the Moby record, it's amazing, it's a masterpiece, and I would never dare to recreate or to remix it, because it's just one of these, like, you would frame it and just leave it, it's perfect. But I was playing around with some synths, and I came up with the same chord progression, but with a 16th arpeggio chord arpeggio, which is putting like badass 808 beats underneath it, and created this kind of record. And everybody I showed the record to was like, come on, it's like, it doesn't fit together, it's not this and it's not that, and it's not techno, but it's not house, it's not and the record actually, and nobody really liked it. And then I said, okay, just for fun, I'm going to send it to a couple of people whose email addresses I'm lucky to have. And one of them was Adam Beyer. And a couple of weeks later, it was 2 years ago, and a couple of weeks later, I watched his Tomorrowland live stream, and all of a sudden he played that record. And I was like, again, against all odds, basically, if I would have listened to what everybody was telling me, I would have just maybe deleted it, or just, it's somewhere on the hard disk, and I would never ever think about it. But to see like a tastemaker, a global superstar like Adam Beyer play this particular record, who doesn't sound like no other, gave me the understanding that it doesn't matter what other people think. Do what you do. Do what you think is cool. Trust your own instincts. Trust your own taste, and you will eventually find people who like it. And that should be the motivation.
I totally agree. I think what happens is when you start being yourself as an art, and let's talk about this is not just being an artist. This is about being in yourself as a human being, accepting who you are and what you do, and kind of how you hold yourself in public, how you hold yourself around your family and your friends. But I think when you truly can accept that, for me, when I can truly accept that, like, that's when other people take notice. And I think for me, that was like, when I started writing music, that I decided not to care what other people actually gave a fuck about, whether it would fit on Dirty Bird, whether it would fit on any other record label that I wanted to be on at that time. That was when the label bosses were hitting me up.
Yeah, right.
I wasn't even like, I didn't have to email them. I didn't have to slide into their DMs. They were hitting me up, if you know what I mean. Like, I always wanted to be on Kneaded Pains, right? Kneaded Pains was like one of my favorite labels when it first started. And Denton Pico are still some of my favorite producers, if you know what I mean, like ever.
Sure, for sure.
And Alex was the one hitting me up, if you know what I mean. Adam was the one hitting me up to release on True Soul. And I think that only came from me writing music that was Will Clarke, wasn't anybody else.
Exactly, absolutely. And that's something that and we spoke about it in London, that's something that I really appreciate and almost adore when it comes to Will Clarke records, because like I said before, back in the days, if you would listen to a Subliminal record, you could tell it's a Subliminal record or a drum code or a Primate record if you just from listening. And it's the same with your records. I mean, if I hear a Will Clarke record, the first 5 seconds into the intro drums, I know it's you.
Thank you.
And and that's something. But then that's something that I struggle with the most, because I have such a huge taste of music. Like, just staying with electronic music, I love vocal house. I love super jazzy stuff. I like. I even like in your face drum code techno, and there's so many things that I really like that it's hard for me to just pick one or choose one box that I want to be associated with. And that's the reason why I try to make this kind of hybrids, like old school house a cappella with that deep melodic techno kind of vibe, but still with the badass drums. And, you know, and then what comes out of it is a record that I love, but I know there's no label ever who's going to release that because it doesn't fit, you know.
Yeah.
That's where Alex came up with the idea of, yeah, you got to do your own label, man. Then just, you know, and like you said, yeah, that's, you know, if you want to put out your personal taste and you don't want to like bend it just so it fits somewhere, you have to walk the talk, basically.
I totally agree, man. I think you should just start your own label.
Maybe I will.
I think you should, because yeah, you can just do what you want.
Right.
It's like, and also you can release. I think there's a point, especially nowadays, is that you can release, like, with it, it's not how it used to be, right? With vinyl, you have to wait like 6 months sometimes to get a record. You get it signed, the record's not coming out for another year maybe, and it's still that case when you sign to a record label, is that they've signed 6 months to a year in advance. So, and it takes a long time to work a record. I was actually having a conversation with Born Dirty the other day, and he won't mind me saying this. Won't go in too much detail, but he was like struggling with, he's got a lot of other side projects, and he's just finding that a lot of things are kind of like sliding into each other and turning into one project. And I was like, dude, the reason why you're having issues with your project is that you're not releasing music, and you have a record label. So release music. You can release a new track every week. We all write so much music. And yeah, don't get me wrong, it's not going to necessarily always hit every song, but once you've got that in your head that every song's not going to turn into a hit, you can release as much music as you want.
Right.
Eventually, one of those records is going to do well. But the law of averages is if you put 100 records out, one of those is probably going to do well and probably make your career. If you put 10 records out, as long, they all have to be very good quality. They can't be shit, but you just have more of a chance for a record doing well.
Right. And then, but you know, then there, what comes in is, why would you get frustrated if you put out 20 songs and there's not a hit record amongst them? It's maybe because your intention of making music is not like coming from the right place. Because if you put out music for the love of music and for sharing your personal taste and everything, then it doesn't matter to you if it's a hit record or not. It only matters to you if you want to be the next S Superstar, if you want to headline Ultra next year. Only then it really matters. And I think it's two very ideological, different points of view. And I think the truth is exactly right in the middle, because I put out music because I love music and because I have a daughter and I want to be a role model, and, you know, I want to kind of have my morals right. Yeah. But I would say I don't give a shit about commercial success. I mean, who wouldn't want to play Tomorrowland or Awakenings or whatsoever, you know? I mean, everybody wants, and I think the struggle is to get the balance between the two right. So that you still have that goal, that ultimate goal, and you still want to go for it and you want to chase it, but without the pressure of this next record has to be it. Otherwise I'm going to turn 40 years old and then I'm too old. And then this is, you know, and this becomes like a negative downward spiral. And this is what's keeping at least me sometimes away from actually writing a good record, you know?
I totally agree. And I think for me, it's about, it goes back to what we've been talking about most of the podcast about, kind of just, it's that acceptance. It's just that almost holding your hands up and being like, I'm completely powerless out of this. Like, I can do social media. I can hope that Spotify playlists my records. I can hope some DJ that's bigger than me is going to kind of like the record and book me on their lineup. I can hope a club promoter listens to the record. I can do all of these things. I can email everyone. I can contact everyone. I can tweet everyone. I can do everything out of my way. If I've done everything that I feel is, first of all, like morally okay to do, and you're not hounding people and telling people, etc., etc. Once you've done that, there's nothing else you can do.
Right.
And if you can look at yourself in the mirror and go, yeah, we've just done everything we've done, and the record's just not. It's just not happening. And that doesn't mean that it's a bad record. That doesn't mean that the record's shit. It just means that now's your not time. Now is not your time.
Yeah.
And it's really strange we're talking about this, because this week has been for me like one of those weeks where I've had conversations with my management and with the guys that run my label, and it's only like we're talking about the MK record that I've just released, and it's not streaming as well as we want it to be streaming. And that's no one's fault.
Right.
And there's nothing we can do about that. But for me, like especially the first 2 weeks, I was literally like depressed. I was like, the world is ending, like my song is not doing well and no one gives a fuck about it. It's like, how can no one care about an MK record? Not, I don't give a fuck about the Will Clarke record, but the MK record, like, etc., etc. And it's like, and then this week or last couple of weeks, it's just like, you know what? The record's out there. People can go and listen if they want. It's never going away, and it might come back. And also, it's out there.
Yeah.
Don't need to worry about it.
Exactly. Yeah, but you know, it's also, I think if people go out on the weekends and they hear a record like your MK record, like a DJ drops at just the right moment on the dance floor, they will go home with the record stuck in their head and they will stream it and show it to people. You know, I think the whole behavior of people streaming and listening to record has changed due to the pandemic as well.
Massively.
So,
you
know, I mean, imagine the MK record coming out and during summertime, Ibiza and like all these festivals, and you would, you know, like the impact is completely different for the exactly same record.
Yeah.
And but you know, I know that, and like I said before, sometimes if you talk about music theoretically, I catch myself to try to appear and come from a very ideological, like, you know, fuck success and fuck commercial music, just do it because of the arts, and obviously it's not the case 100%.
No.
And I've also had I've had tunes that I've sent to just 2 or 3 labels, and I was sure they're gonna go crazy to hear it. And of course they didn't go too excited about it. And you know, and now I can, you know, and you know, like you sent a tune and you can see on your SoundCloud, okay, they've been listening to it, but they haven't been downloading it. Why? Okay, maybe they listen from abroad. Maybe they're gonna download for sure when they come home. And days later, no additional, nothing. You know, like I understand that feeling, and it's demotivating, but you got to turn that negative feeling into something positive, to take it as an inspiration to do better. And but like you said before, sometimes it's just out of your hands. There's an artist that I've produced for, and in the last couple of months, he had a couple of strong releases, and you know, but still it's frustrating with the pandemic and blah blah blah. And the last record that we've done didn't get signed to the label he wanted to. And I tried to explain to him, you know, I tried to make it very, very easy to understand. If you imagine the guy who's in charge at the record company to sign your song or not, like one day he gets up in the morning, the sun is shining, his wife is walking around the sleeping room naked, and you know, everything's against, he's bringing a coffee, and he gets up in the morning and he gets a new Spotify sheet, and he's in a good mood, and then he gets into the car, listens to your record, and he's like, fuck yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
I'm gonna sign this guy. The same guy, another morning, the weather's shit, his wife didn't come home late last night, and he gets up from bed and he's just hurting himself somewhere, and he listens to your record and he's like, fuck no, not today. Exact same record, but listened to from a person in charge from a totally different point of view. And that's something you cannot control. It's the last it's just a bit of luck that just, you know, that it takes for a record to eventually or maybe go super crazy. And you got, you know, there's always stuff you cannot control. You just have to stick to the art and be true to yourself and have the right ambitions and just continue to write music.
I agree, man. I totally agree. I think, like, a classic example, the 2 records that we wrote together.
Yeah.
Backroom, and I can't remember the name of the other one.
That was a year ago.
Really?
Yeah.
Jeez. We need to release them. But I think it was Backroom that I was like, I'm probably never going to play this. Like, it's not really for me. And I was doing my open to close tour, and all of a sudden I just like I played it by accident because I was supposed to play the other one, and I played it by accident, and it fucking slammed, and I was like, oh shit. Like I'm that person. I'm in that different environment and playing the record, and it works so well. And I didn't think it would work, but it worked. And it is so we're in this world where we're relying on other people to like what we do, to become,
or to confirm,
to become, if we want this to be our jobs, we need people to like what we do, to then for that to turn into financial success at the end of the day. And I think realistically, like, the fact that Maceo Plex or Adam Bayer likes our music is probably not, for me, like, it's not like, oh my God, I love the fact that they love that my music. It's the fact that maybe I'm thinking, oh, what could come from this?
Yeah, but this is also something that I had to learn. If you start writing music, if you start producing music, there's two kind of audiences that you could eventually write music for. One of them is all the people you look up to, like in my case, Howard from Disclosure, Maceo Plex, etc., etc. And then there's the other audience. It's the people who will listen to the record, stream the record, go crazy on the dance floor when the DJ plays it out.
Yeah.
And I think they're both important from, like, artistically speaking, but if I would have to choose between having 100 million people going nuts on the weekends listening to my song, but therefore, like, the people I look up to, they don't like it, or the other way around, I would always choose the 100 million people.
Totally.
Not out of financial reasons, but aren't they the people that where we are also coming from? Like, I'm coming from the dance floor, and that's kind of the quality. To write a record and to be in a club and the DJ plays the record and he doesn't even know that you are there and you see all these people go crazy to it. That's the feeling that's unbeatable. While if I just try to focus on making music to impress people that I look up to, I cannot buy me nothing from that. It's a nice add-on. It's a nice add-on. If one time Maceo Plex slides into my DMs and tells me, hey, I've listened to your record, this and that, and I just got to say I love it. Okay, that's amazing. That's great. And I would, go crazy maybe because I'm such a big fan. But it's not that important artistically, financially, from so many point of views. And I think that a lot of people misunderstand it and they get frustrated because they want to have the people that they're looking up to complimenting them. And it's not going to happen. And like I said before, there's so many reasons why it's not going to happen. Maybe on that particular day, the guy you're looking up to has had a shit day and it just doesn't feel like saying you're good. It just doesn't feel like it. Doesn't mean you're not good, So
no, I totally agree, and it goes back to that thing that you said at the beginning, is that you don't like everyone. Everyone's not going to like you.
Exactly, and that's cool. And there's days where even my wife doesn't like me. So, and then sometimes I play her a record, and she's like, "I don't know," and I was like, "What do you mean? I don't know? It's amazing," So it's just stuff you cannot control, stuff that's out of your control, and that's the reason why it's stuff you shouldn't be bothered about when trying to be a creative.
Yeah, man.
That's just it doesn't mean that I understand it myself all the time. There's points where I get frustrated and where I find myself in a valley of self-doubt. But that's what then you have friends for. And I think there's so many memes like on social media with like wisdom shit. But there's a couple of them who are true, and you have to surround yourself with people who are honest, who have the same ambitions, who talk about goals and about how to get better and how to support themselves, other than talking about gossip about other people. And if you find these people, and if you surround yourself with these kind of people, if you find yourself in this valley of self-doubt, you can always rely on, okay, I'm going to send this record to Will now because I feel like shit, and he's going to let me know what he thinks about it.
Yeah.
And even if you don't like it, you will put it in a way that I understand it's constructive criticism, and it makes me feel better immediately.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like my mom always used to say, if you make it to a certain level, you're obligated to send the elevator back down. And that's like,
I like that. I like that a lot. You've just had an EP come out.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this because I can't even pronounce the EP name.
Yeah, so the thing is, the EP is called Jetzt, and Jetzt is a German word for now, basically.
Okay.
And it came out because on the title track, which is called Ich bin jetzt, which literally means I am now, which doesn't make any sense at all.
Okay.
But I had this vocal sample, I was playing around with it and reversing and doing this and that and blah. And all of a sudden it sounded like the girl saying Ich bin jetzt. And I like that. It's just so weird. And, and
I need to
so
pull it up.
there's no particular interesting story about it. It's just that.
A fucking amazing record.
Thank you very much.
It is absolutely amazing. The whole EP is 4 tracks. So Ich bin jetzt, Jack the Box, Jack Chicago, and you knows. The English there is great. I respect that a lot. But but there's something about your records that I don't know how you do it, but you have this like signature sound, especially in your drums and your bass line, and it's like the swing in the like, I don't know, it's just the whole groove that I just don't know no one else does it. Like, what do you do?
Like first of all, I have to say, if I'm collaborating with people in my studio, out of 10 people, 8 would say, I don't know what you're doing, but I cannot work like that. It doesn't make any sense. And only 2 of them would say, maybe it's genius, but not because I'm a genius, because just, like I think Bill Gates once said, he's giving the hardest task to the most lazy people because they will find the fastest way to solve the problem. And that's my approach when making music. If I have something in head, I want to sound it like this and that. And I don't try to go that's how you do it kind of appropriate way. I just want to take a shortcut because I have so many things in my head that I have to get it done as fast as possible in order to not forget about what else I want to do with the record. Yeah. So when it comes for the swing, I mean, there's so many ways in Ableton to import grooves to MIDI sections, for instance, and to add this typical MPC kind of swing stuff. But I would rather just put the snare not on the grid and then play around with the track delay just so it fits. So besides the kick drum, in none of my records, anything is ever on grid. Never.
This is where we're completely the opposite, because I am just so on the grid. Everything, for me, it annoys me, the fact, not because it doesn't sound right, because my OCD, it has to be on the line. If it's off the line, it just messes my OCD.
And then you have what I love about Ableton 10 is that you can make groups and then put 2 groups into another group and then another group, and just try to make buses basically. And then I just have like, I don't know, hi-hat, all the hi-hats, like 4 hi-hat tracks. And first of all, they're not all in grid. And then I just play around with the track delay so that it's kind of sometimes it gets a little too weird, but then I just add a super overdone kind of side chain just to force it to, to duck at this particular, and it's just, and at some point, it's just, there's a guy actually who really inspired me years ago. He went by the name Switch.
Legend, Dave.
And there's this, like a lot of Switch remixes, and that's how, like, the swing that he had was always insane and crazy and so like, but I love that. Maybe a little too much for me personally, but that's that was still stuck in my head.
Yeah, one for me, Joe Goddard. I was listening to some of his stuff yesterday actually, and it's just like, this guy doesn't know what quantization is at all, but it just fits, and it just feels real. I think that's the thing. It's like there's music that needs to be down the line and straight,
right?
And then there's music that has like soul, and like, it's like there's electronic artists or like house techno artists that they're like write an album and then they do a like down tempo record and everything will still be like on the grid, and it doesn't feel right, because that's not how a human plays the drums, if you know what I mean. It's still like, this is just too straight and there's no soul to it, which you can get away with in house music. But I think when you have producers that produce hip hop and different, like electronica and things like that. And a classic example for me is Burial. Burial
I was just about to say Burial, the first album, Untrue. I mean, imagine everything being quantized and in grid.
Exactly.
It wouldn't sound the same.
No, you wouldn't want to listen to it.
I mean, Kneaded, it's his signature thing that the second and the fourth kick drum always came in a little too early, a little too late. It doesn't fit, but then it's like, but it's so well done that it just feels right. I mean, if I had to imagine every Burial record or every Kneaded record, everything being quantized and in grid and just, super slick and, then it would just wouldn't feel right.
Yeah, man, it's strange. It's strange. So let's talk about records for you. You've released on Kneaded Pains a lot.
Yeah.
What was the attraction to Kneaded Pains?
Because like I said before, most of the times when I write music, at the end of the day, I love the tune or the tunes that I've done. And then I'm thinking about, okay, who am I gonna send this to?
Yeah.
And then I go through my list of labels that I like, and it's like, no, for sure not. Yeah. And there's only a handful of labels that I always love because of the versatility and because of the not giving a fuck attitude towards the music. And one of them was always Kneaded Pains, because if you take a look at the Kneaded Pains compilations, there would be like Will Clarke's Listen Linda, which has a very house approach, followed by a badass in your face 135 BPM acid techno kind of tune. Like I always had the feeling that whoever A&R's Kneaded Pains doesn't give a shit about boxes or about styles or how something has to sound in order to be whatever it needs to be.
Yeah.
But if it feels right, it's good.
Yeah.
And if you take a listen on all the tunes that I've released on Kneaded Pains, no tune sounds like the other.
No.
And that artistic freedom is the reason why I would consider Kneaded Pains be my home label. That's why also the collaboration and working with Alex from Dance and Pico works so well, because, like he would rather tell me, no, we don't do this record because it sounds too much like this and then.
Yeah.
But he would never say, no, we don't release it because it's too unique.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's something that I always felt about Kneaded Pains. And that's also the reason why I've stuck with Kneaded Pains. I would always release Kneaded Pains before any other label that would make sense strategically.
Yeah.
It's
the first time I've ever actually had to tell somebody how to say a word in English. Like,
strategically. The name of the next EP. So yeah, that was why I Kneaded Pains. And it took me some time to have a couple of records ready that I thought would be suitable for Kneaded Pains. But once I've sent it, it was like 4 weeks later when Alex got back to me. I already forgot about it. I was just like, not for them. And that's how it all started. And now Kneaded Pains is for sure one of my favorite labels ever.
100%, especially for me, like at this moment in time.
And it brought us together too.
It did. So. It brought us together. And I think it's brought a lot of people together.
For sure.
Because I think a lot of people in the industry look at that label as something that's just a really good techno label.
Right.
It's not the same. It's not boring. It's not like once you've heard one record, you've heard all of them. Like every release they do, it's like, oh, what's next?
Right. And and they have from Charlotte DeWitt and Eats Everything to Maya Jane Coles to people I've never ever heard about, and yet fits the roster so good and so well done. And it's kind of a platform also for young aspiring producers like I am to just show the world, okay, this is what I sound like, this is what I do. And because there's a Kneaded Pains stamp on it, people will take it for full and okay, wait, one word, credible.
Okay, yeah. Just heard your brain ticking then.
And that's what I love so much about it. And it's like you said, it doesn't follow a trend. It doesn't follow like mathematically, this is how it's got to sound like. And it's not a business. It's more the original techno vibe.
Yeah,
still swings with it. I feel.
Yeah, totally.
But it makes us stand out, kind of a label.
Yeah.
Well done, Alex.
Yeah, well done, Alex.
Chris and Nick
and Chris. It's weird because Nick manages my label as well.
I know.
He does like parts of it, which is great. So are you talking to him about doing a label yet?
Not yet. I still have to, like, you know, like after we met in London, after we were talking about it for the first time, my wife was like, do it. I mean, it solves all of your problems because you don't have to send tunes out. You can release your own music. You have so many people who would support you, like Alex, you know, and it's, the more I think about it, the more I need to come up with a name first. And I think once I have the name, then, you know, it's kind of then it's getting real, you know what I mean? So the baby has to have a name in order to get real. But I think that I need to do it. I think I need to do it.
Only if you sign a Will Clarke record. That's the only rules.
But the first record has to have a Will Clarke remix.
Of course, always, man. I got you. I want to talk about. I don't know if you want to talk about this, but I want to talk about. Like, I'm a massive foodie, as you probably know, and I know you have your own restaurant. How did that come about?
So I don't have my own restaurant, as in owning it, but two friends of mine used to. They started a restaurant, the first one 8 years ago.
Yeah,
it's a little bit outside of Vienna. It's a little bit bourgeois, but I don't want to put it too much in a negative meaning. But it's, you know, average age, like over 40, 45, something like that. And it's very nice, like chic, and, you know.
Yeah.
And a couple of years ago, they approached me and said, Philip, listen, we have the opportunity to make a restaurant in the middle of the city, but we want to make it hip, but still with a certain quality in when it comes to the food, but with a moderate price policy. And we want to have the business guy feel as comfortable having his truffle, like whatever, sitting next to the graffiti guy from just, you know, from just having his like typical Austrian Käsespätzle with a beer or something.
Yeah.
And they approached me in a creative sense, more than a culinary or like gastronomic sense. That's how we found together, and that's how it came about.
So what was the process in that?
I can't really tell, because it was the first time I was working on and helping, like, establishing, creating a restaurant. I would never have thought, I would never have pictured myself being in gastronomy other than being a DJ or a musician. So it was very interesting because my two friends who run the restaurant, they're very professional when it comes about to it. They know very much, and I've learned very much just hanging out with them, speaking about stuff that's not really my resort in the first place, but just getting to understand the whole thing, like in a 360-degree kind of thing. And it was fun. It was exhausting. And it's also exhausting to be around alcohol all the time. And after some time, you know all the people, and you're DJing, and then you get to talk to all the regular customers and have a drink here and a drink there. And all of a sudden you forget, oh, I'm here for the DJing, actually. Or I'm here to take care of this and that. And so it's very self-centering in a sense. And but it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun, for sure.
How important do you think it is to have something outside of music, or outside of trying to make music your career?
I think it depends. It really depends on where you stand in life. Like for me, I'm a married man. My wife and I, we have a beautiful daughter. She's 6.5 years old. So I have to make sure that she's taken care of at any part of the day, any time of the year. Even I have to make sure that even something happens to me and I'm unable to work or make money for half a year, that there's enough money on the account so that there's no struggle there. Besides the fact that my wife's also there, of course, but you know, just from my very macho-esque kind of approach. But that definitely changes the perception. Definitely changes also the like how you approach all things creative. Before I met my wife, before she got pregnant, like it was just living. I don't know if you can put it that way in English, but it was living from the hand in the mouth. I got the money. And some months I would have 20 grand. I took it and I spent it, and there was nothing left in the end of the month. And some months I just had 1 grand. It was cool too. So you know, so I think it's good to know that you don't have to rely 100% on the commercial success of your art. But on the other hand, it also the pressure is also something good sometimes. So I try not to be at the restaurant for too much time, but still enough time as a kind of a place to breathe and not think about the arts, you know. And if you know, I try to juggle that, and I think it works very well.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. I totally agree with you. And I think we should end on that, because that was a nice way to end.
Plus, I'm hungry now.
Yeah, dude, same. I've got to bake some bread as well, and it takes me all fucking day to bake some sourdough. It's a nightmare.
Yeah, I'm just gonna go and buy it and put some stuff on it.
That would be easier. So if anyone that's listening who doesn't follow you, how can they follow you on social media?
It's very easy. It's always Dubesque. It's Dubesque. I don't even know how to pronounce it. Wait, hold on a second. Let me check. I need to check. No, it's Dubesque. Dubesque, like that. Yeah. And it's Instagram /Dubesque. It's Facebook. But the thing is, there's so much social media. So best way to follow me and to get in touch is via Instagram, because it's so easy. It's so overseeable. And if you want to drop me a line and let me know how you like my music, send me a line. Just text me. If you want me to check out your music, text me. And, like I said, sharing is caring. And I'm happy to put my unasked opinion out there at any time of the day.
Yes, man. Right, stay on, but I'm going to end this interview. So big love. Thank you, man. And I catch you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, man.
Love you, dude. Take care. Bye.
Yeah.
Yo, that is a wrap. I loved it. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please hit us up in the reviews below and tell all your mates. I love you forever, and keep safe. See you next time.